Hi guys, it's Freedom Dove again. So this is part 2 of my video series on how to make lip balm, and I'll start by showing you some of the stuff that I have. This is actually my big box of oils. I have probably 24 different oils. A couple of them are in the refrigerator actually, and one of them's in the house. But then I have butters down here, and I've got my lanolin and clays and beeswax and emulsifying wax that I use in my lotions. And this is actually my wound balm. I call it Multiplex 39 because it's multi-purpose and it has 39 ingredients in it. And so I'm going to actually do this part on my apex, and I'll get that turned on here in a minute. And I'm going to use my 1000-watt infrared burner, and it shouldn't take too long, so it's not going to be too much of a strain. And that's the pot that I use. I put the water in here. I use a hot water bath to indirectly heat up the oils. And then this is just a silicone trivet. It's actually like an egg cooker that I found, and it works really well as a trivet because I melt them all down in this measuring cup, and so I set that down in there. And then that's my oil infusion from the last video. It's looking pretty good. There is a very, very, very small amount of sediment in the bottom. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's a very small amount. And so I'll have to avoid getting that, pouring that the next time I make lip balm, because I'm only going to do one batch today, and that's enough infused oil to do 2 batches. So this, I've already poured all my other delicate oils, and I'm going to include a time lapse of me doing that because that was kind of slow and tedious, so I will include that time lapse here. Alrighty, so as you could see in that time lapse, maybe it was going pretty fast, this is the measuring cup that I use. I really like this a lot. It is marked in tablespoons and in ounces, and it goes up to 2 ounces, and it starts at 1/4 of an ounce. And that's actually the marking I was using. Can't see that very well. It's the first marking down there in the bottom. That's what I was using to pour these oils, because there are 11 different oils in here, and it's just a very small amount of each one. So altogether I'm going to be using 5 ounces of oil, and that's including my little extracts here. I have some oil based extracts that I go ahead and include in the amount of my liquid oil. They're just very, very small amounts, but when I add them up together it makes 1/4 of an ounce, and so I include that in the measurement. So I'm going to take 2 ounces of that, and then all of these, which added up to 3 ounces, and so that'll be 5 ounces. And then for 5 ounces of oil you want to use approximately 2 ounces of beeswax, or a combination of beeswax and butters, which is what I did. This is 1 ounce of beeswax pastilles, which makes melting much easier than using chunks, big chunks of beeswax. And then this is my butters and my lanolin. Well, it's just 1 butter and my lanolin. And when I say butters, I mean like kokum, mango, my kokum, mango butter, cocoa butter, which is in the house, shea butter, those kind of butters. They really add a lot of creaminess, and they do help thicken it, so that's why you can use that as to count towards the beeswax. So I've just got 2 ounces altogether here to 5 ounces of oil, and this is my stash of essential oils. I have a lot of essential oils. That's the box I keep it in, which is a really nice box. Maybe I'll show you later. It's got the design on the top and on the inside. And I use so many of them that I had to get a nice box like this, because I had them in actually I had them in this thing, and that sucked because they were always sliding around. There was no separating them. I couldn't keep them organized or anything. And now in here I can keep them all in alphabetical order and everything. And I keep my extras back here on the back row because some of these are getting ready to be empty bottles. And then this is the lip balm tube holder. You turn it over and you stick the lip balm tubes in there, the empty ones, and you set it up. You'll be able to see it later in the video. And then these are my lip balm tubes. And so I'm probably gonna maybe do a time lapse on that too. I'm not sure. This is the scale I used to weigh out my beeswax and my butters, because my gram scale won't do it. I'm using ounces, and so I actually have 3 different scales. The one that I showed you in the first one that does grams, and then this one does ounces, and then I would just use this one. That's my really nice kitchen scale, and I like it a lot, but it doesn't go quite far down. Like I can get 0.25 for like a quarter of an ounce. It will go to 0.25, but on this one it goes straight from 0.2 to 0.3. So for these very small amounts I can't actually use that one. So now I have 3 scales to bring with me. Alright, so I'm going to get the camera turned around and I will show you how I start putting this stuff together. Alright everybody, here we go. So I'm going to turn on my Apex here first thing, and I am at 100% right now. Plug in my thing here, try to get the cord out of the way. My table's a little unlevel, so there's only just a few level spots, so I can't be moving around too much. And then I just put my glass pot on here. And when I pour the water in, I want to make sure that there's no water at all going into the oil. So I usually just try to cover it a little bit just in case. And this is just tap water, so it's really hard water. And so I like to add a little bit of vinegar so that I'm not getting hard water stains and scum on my pot or on my measuring cup. This is just regular white vinegar. It doesn't take very much. I can take that off. And then what I need to do is to measure out my 2 ounces of my oil infusion. And like I said, this is just one batch. I can do one more batch after this, and I'll probably wait until next year right before I leave to make it again. And so this oil, I will store the leftovers in the refrigerator, and I just put a label on it to remind me of what it is and when I infused it, because one of the oils is hemp oil, and you already have to keep that refrigerated. So I'll put that in the refrigerator and use it for the next batch. And then I'll add this in. And like I said in the first video, these oils are very expensive and you don't want to waste any, so I always try to have a good scraper. This one's also made of silicone, like that little red one that I was using in the first video. I really hope you can hear me. I'm sorry if you can't. The camera's kind of pointed a little bit away from me and towards the setup here. And these oils are going to get warmer than I want them to, but I am at the mercy of the beeswax, which has a pretty high melting point, and so there's really nothing I can do about it besides just to keep an eye on it and keep stirring it, and right when these melt in, just turn the heat off, because you don't want it to get really super hot. You only want it to get hot enough to melt down the beeswax. And as I said in the first video, you can use carnauba wax, which is for vegan, but I'm not vegan, and this is definitely not a vegan recipe because there's lanolin and beeswax in here, so this is not vegan at all. My hands are clean, by the way, in case you're wondering. So I'll go ahead and turn this on. Maybe, maybe not. Did I turn it to the wrong place? I think I have to turn it to the right. I'm still new with the Apex. I haven't used it very much. Yep, there we go. Sorry. Turn it to the right to turn on the 110 volts. And so I've got it about on 3. I'm just going to see how hot that gets it. And then you add your butters or whatever. Like I said, you can just use all beeswax. Alright, so you can either stir it with your knife or your spatula, it doesn't really matter. Alright, so I'm going to turn the camera off while this gets hot so that I'm not boring you with unnecessary footage. See you in a minute. Alright, so here we are. It's been probably a half an hour, and I'm just doing this really low and slow. The beeswax is almost all the way melted, but I turned that down a little bit because, well, I had some stuff to do in the house and I didn't want it to melt too fast. I could have kept it up on like 3, but now I have it on a little bit over 1. Well, kind of hard to do one-handed. I would normally scrape off the knife with that spatula, but I only have one hand here. That's okay. I'll get those the next time around, I guess. Or I can just be more coordinated. How about that, Deb? Alright. And the Apex, let's see if we can get you down there to see it. It's already drained down to 72%, so we are using some energy here, obviously, but it shouldn't be too much longer. The temperature, you push the button in and you point it at the thing, and then you release it, and then you can see what it is. See, it's at 119 already. So hopefully this beeswax will be melted soon, because I don't like to get those delicate oils very hot, because you do lose some healing property. But like I said, I'm at the mercy of this beeswax. I have to get it all melted in. All right. And I do wait, even though I count these extracts with the oil amounts, they are very, very delicate, just like my essential oils. So I wait until the last minute, right before I pour it, to measure in my extracts and my essential oils. So I will get back to you at that point. Alright guys, so quite a bit of time has elapsed here. I actually had to turn off my burner and go do stuff in the house for about an hour. And so if you can see, everything's solidified. I turned it off and now it all went solid. So now I'm having to turn it back on and remelt it. And my Apex is actually kind of running out of juice here. I mean, I knew it would, but I didn't think it would be this much. We're already down to 34%. So, sorry about my finger in the way. I need to get this going, or I'm going to run out of energy, and I'm going to have to plug it into a wall outlet. So this is an experiment for me, because I've never made my wound balm on the Apex. I always just plug it into a wall outlet here in my garage. So I'm going to let that heat back up. You can hear the fan maybe. It's running a little hard. I've never heard it run that hard. So hopefully everything's okay. Alright, so these are the lip balm tube holders, like I was saying earlier. I've got 2 of them, and I wanted to just point out that you can get 2 of the same thing. This is the same thing from the same brand, and they can be totally different. Like, I don't even remember. I bought these from 2 different vendors, but it is the same brand. But these tubes, oh wow, that fan just turned off. That was really loud. Hopefully my Apex is okay. It's got a warranty, thank goodness. Okay, so these tubes I got from containerandpackaging.com, and these tubes I got from Amazon. And so you're dealing with differences not only in the tubes, but also if you have different trays. Like, it depends on which tray you get. This tray, when I tried to fill the tubes, they fall out. Like, you have to turn this over. These are upside down, and so you have to turn this over like that, and then you fill them like that. But when I use these tubes in this tray, when I turn it over, half of the tubes fall out, and so that really, it's a real big pain in the butt. This is by far the most tedious and hardest part of making lip balm. Now you can actually just pour it into little metal tins and do like a Carmex like thing, but I really don't like to apply lip balm with my fingers. I don't like that. I don't think it's very sanitary. So I just put up with this. And so these fit better in this tray. This is kind of worthless to me at this point, but even this tray, there's a couple of them that are wanting to fall out when I flip it over, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But what I wanted to really show you was these tubes I got from Amazon. They don't even go down all the way. There's no way they're going to fall out because they don't even fit in there all the way. Let's see if I can get it on camera. Like, you can see it's not even in there all the way. And so I don't really like these tubes that I got from Amazon, and I don't really like these tubes that I got from Container and Packaging, but there doesn't seem to be an in-between. See, these just barely fit, so that doesn't really work for me. And I've tried a few different ways to pour this lip balm, and it's just a pain in the butt. Like, I've just set the tubes upright and put rubber bands, a rubber band around a group of 10 of them, and tried to pour it that way. And I've tried to pour them individually, and it's just really, really messy. And when you're at the final pouring phase and you put your essential oils in, they kind of like to sit on top, and you have to keep stirring this as you're pouring it, and it takes like 3 or 4 hands, and I only have 2, so it's a little bit challenging. It would be much easier to just pour it in the little metal tins and get it over with. So yeah, we're getting messy here, and we're running out of juice, out of energy. But this is what happens with real life. Sometimes you have to stop and go do, other things. And thankfully with the oils like this, you can stop it and then restart it. So I will get back to you in a minute. I will flip this thing over, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take masking tape, and I'm going to tape off these other holes so that there's no extra lip balm coming through to where there's no tube. Alright, see you in a minute. Alright, so you can see I've got this back to liquid again, and even though that whole thing solidified, it was only because there was enough beeswax there to make it all solid. That didn't mean that all the beeswax was melted. So now I'm back to the point where there's mostly just liquid oil, or liquid, but then I'm still waiting for this beeswax to melt. So that'll just take a few more minutes. My apex is at 31%, so I still have enough juice, but I'm hoping to get this done with soon. And as it melts, you'll notice, like, if you took your knife out and you let it, if you don't scrape off the oil or anything, you'll see that there's a fine coating of balm on the knife. So the heat is the only thing that's keeping that liquid right now. Alright, so I will flip these things over and tape that off, and then when that's all melty, I will add my essential oils and I will get to pouring. See you then.